Good afternoon. This is Kevin Brown. Welcome to the special Superintendent's Webcast on April 14th, 2020. Today is going to be our normal webcast, but we're starting to focus on some specific issues we think relevant to you as we continue to work through the COVID-19 period. And today we're going to focus on issues around COVID-19 that may impact educator preparation, licensure, and certification. And we're going to have a presentation on those areas from our Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness, and we're happy to have them with us today. We'll also, of course, as we normally do, dedicate the last part of the webinar, and we'll stay here as long as we can until 4, until all the questions are answered. And of course, questions arising from the issue I just described, but also if you have other issues that aren't related to educator licensure and effectiveness, and you want to talk about other issues, we're more than happy to do that as well. Before I turn it over to Associate Commissioner Rob Akers, I did want to update you on a few issues. I encourage you to read the Monday message that sent out to you yesterday from me and overview some issues there. And I'll just briefly go over those. As you know, the Kentucky Board of Education met last week on April 9th and complete virtual meeting as we're all doing now. And I'm sure as your boards are getting used to that, our state board members are also getting quite adept at navigating through Microsoft Teams. And I know you're having those same challenges, but also it's also rewarding to see a board meeting take place without anybody in your boardroom, that we have the technology to do that. However, we all know we want to be back in our boardroom. So, but I want to thank you all for your leadership and getting your boards into that place that they can do that. The first part of the meeting, in case you weren't able to tune in, was dedicated solely to COVID-19. I dedicated the commissioner's update to that subject matter, of course, and we spent the greater part of the morning going through every associate commissioner and every leader of every office at the department gave a presentation to the board about all the efforts underway to assist schools and districts with the 3 words that we use at the department to guide us during that time: educate, feed, and support. And that's what we intend to do here at the department, to support you as you also are educating, feeding, and supporting kids. The second part of the board meeting, of course, we have normal board business, just like you do in your local boards, and we have to move on with those because the world is still going, and we were going to have a school year next year. And so the board had several regulations that were under review, in addition to hearing some statements of consideration. And then the board also heard an update from Greenwood Asher. That is the executive search firm the board has hired on contract to assist with the search for the new permanent commissioner. We hope to be on track to have a new commissioner named hopefully this summer. The original goal is July 1st to have that person in place so we could begin a new school year with he or she, but we know that due to some delays with just getting the search firm selected, but then also with COVID-19, that could be a little later. And I've explained to the board that while I'm anxious to get back to Jefferson County, I'm willing to serve as long as needed and as long as the board thinks is necessary to have a effective national search. And from what was said at the board meeting last week, that's exactly what they're going to do. And so you can look forward to a very aggressive search, and you'll be hearing more about that. There'll be advertisements placed, and as I've stated before, there are 3 ways that a person can come through as a candidate to be the commissioner. They can be nominated by you out there in the field. If you think somebody has the characteristics to be the commissioner, you can nominate someone, or if you think you do, you can apply to be the commissioner. And then also the search firm goes out and looks for individuals that may be qualified, that meet the list of desired characteristics that the state board has developed. So again, that's just a summary. You've heard a lot of that before, but I want to make sure you understood the board is still moving forward with the national search, even during this time. I also wanted to remind you we have a new Kentucky Department of Education COVID-19 webpage that we've launched. We want to make sure you had a one-stop shop, or at least a first place to start in your search for information about COVID-19. And this is not the public health side. You always need to go to the Department of Public Health's webpage and the 1-800 number that you hear Governor Beshear talk about every day at 5 o'clock. That's where you always go for the actual information about the virus and anything associated with it. The department's launch page is dedicated to information that you may need to run a school district that may be affected by COVID-19. So we've set up a launch page there. I think you will find it a lot easier to use. We want to make sure we reduce the amount of time you or your staff have in finding the information you need, which leads me to we've developed 5 new guidance documents. And again, as we're answering the questions in a question and answer document that's populated by the superintendent webinars like we're having today. I think we have a 500-page Q&A. We're not just keeping those questions in there. We're bringing those questions back out and dividing them into categories again, so you don't have to search a 500-page document to find out information about professional learning and how that may be impacted by COVID-19. So as an example, and these are hyperlinked in the Commissioner's Monday message to you, we have 5 new guidance documents. One on the senior class of 2020 and how COVID-19 will affect and has affected that class. Another document on questions around instruction. The third document, questions around professional learning. The fourth on COVID-19, mental health and wellness. And then also the last one that we specifically under highlight in the Monday message was assigning and reporting grades. Again, these are all subjects we've covered in Q&As, but you have staff that may need to have these as reference documents, and they're also updated frequently. So if you do print one out, for example, make sure you're always going back and checking it again, particularly after a superintendent webinar, because we're continuing to get questions and things evolve. Anytime we're in any kind of a crisis or things are changing, sometimes things evolve. So I want to make sure we're getting you the most up-to-date information. And some good news, you've heard this before, and we've talked a little bit about the money coming from the CARES Act specifically to Kentucky. We thought it was around $190 million. Today, I received a call from the Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Education, Frank Brogan. I really want to thank him for reaching out personally to me on behalf of U.S. Department of Ed, and he wanted to deliver this message. He wanted to confirm, and he encouraged me to share this with you, which I am, that Kentucky will be receiving for K-12 $193,186,874 in CARES Act funding. He also pledged that U.S. Ed will be issuing guidance to us and a question and answer regarding the use of those funds in days. And so they normally have about 30 days from the announcement of a grant. I think that would probably be April 27th. It sounds like they're going to issue that guidance much quicker than that. And we appreciate that because there are questions you were asking as superintendents, and we're also asking our counterparts in D.C. that we don't yet have answers to, that we really need those answers. For example, when does a reimbursable cost, when can it be incurred? Can you have a cost that was incurred to be reimbursed for under the CARES Act before the CARES Act was even passed? All those kind of technical questions we're waiting for answers on, and we know that impacts your ability to go out and maybe buy Chromebooks or by maybe other technology needs that you have in the technology space to assist districts. So we know that's of importance, and I told Secretary Brogan that we really appreciated rushing that guidance because that really will help us help you determine how you want to be reimbursed for funds already expended, or perhaps have needs that you need to spend money on now, knowing that you can get a federal reimbursement. So that's exciting news. And then the last thing I'll leave you with, if you remember on our call with the governor several weeks ago, he indicated he would like to give another update to superintendents around the middle of April. And as you know, in Kentucky, the governor and our officials at Public Health, Dr. Stack and others, they are using data and science to then help them advise other parts of state government and school districts on the best course of action. So I'm not saying that to take away from other states. Some other states have gone ahead and called school, for example, for in-person classes the rest of the year, and there's nothing wrong with that. But Governor Beshear and his team have been very clear. They want to make sure we're using the most up-to-date data. And he indicated to us there's, of course, a very small chance we could come back into in-person classes at some point before the close of the school year. However, we know that's probably not very likely, but he wants to keep that chance in mind. And so I'm saying all that to tell you that you should anticipate a invitation from our office for another call with the governor at the beginning of next week. We don't have the exact date and time. It will be the first part of the week, we think. And we really want to thank the governor for continuing to keep us updated and his willingness to spend time with superintendents. And I think it's probably been on a 2 to 3 week interval. I think this will be the fourth call we've had with the governor. So be looking forward to that. And of course, as soon as we get that from the governor's scheduling office, we will send that out to you to set that call up. So we want to get on to the items today. I know you have a lot of questions in these areas, and I'll turn it over to Associate Commissioner Rob Akers.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Rob Akers from the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness here at KDE, and I'm glad to be here with you this afternoon. We've got several updates that we think will provide you some information that should help you as you begin navigating through the hiring season. Before I get into that, I'd like to say thank you for all you're doing in support of our students and families during these challenging times. I know that you all have pivoted right on a dime and provided instruction and food and all kinds of support to our students. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it. So next, we'll have, if you don't have the link to the soapbox, we have that ready, and I think on the next slide for you. And then we'll move to our agenda. We do not have near the length of presentation that you got last time from finance. We don't do quite as much in terms of the broad scope of work in this office, but we do have some updates on some items that I think will be very important to you as you move forward through hiring season. So just a quick look at the agenda. I have leaders from the Office of Educator Licensure Effectiveness with me today who are going to be sharing. I have Dr. Meredith Brewer, who is a director, Todd Davis, who's one of our directors, Allison Bell, who's a branch manager, Crystal Horde, who's a branch manager, and our policy advisor and counsel to the EPSB, Cassie Trueblood. So let's just give you a quick overview of OELE. We support the work of the Kentucky Board of Education and the Education Professional Standards Board. We divide our work into 3 main areas that include educator preparation, educator certification, and educator recruitment and development. So it's our goal to put some useful and updated information in your hands as you negotiate this hiring season and as you contemplate the end of this academic year and as you plan for the next. So we'll start off with a little update around educator preparation. Yesterday, the EPSB they met and took action to provide relief for our ed prep partners and for pre-service teachers. They took several actions around educator prep. One of the biggest issues that we're facing that you'll see ties over to both educator preparation and educator certification is around praxis testing. And so around being admitted to an EPP, the EPSB waived the praxis case and the GRE for conditional admittance. And what that means is that students can get into the programs as long as they meet the requirements of admission in every other component, but have not been able to take the case or the GRE. Next, we took care of student teachers. The EPSB obviously had to grant some leniency on the 70 days of student teaching. I really appreciate the districts who have allowed student teachers to participate in NTI, to continue to learn how to provide online and remote services to the students and to learn from the teachers who have been providing this service and instruction as well. I think that's been an invaluable lesson for our student teachers. And I know there's some areas where that just wasn't possible, and we completely understand that as well. And that's why the waiver was given by the EPSB. Tony, I'm getting questions that are saying 5 of them so far that says that there's no sound on the webcast. Do we know if that has been rectified or not?
Let's see, Andy or Megan, can you check on that, please?
We got 435 on YouTube now, so we'll look into that. I don't know if it's just those 5 or all 435. We'll look.
We got 6 now.
Okay, hold on.
Let's see, David, we're monitoring the webcast. I think everything's okay. We've checked it on 6 different devices.
Okay. Okay, I just got a text from a couple of superintendents and they said that we do have sound on YouTube. So let's just go ahead. Maybe if the ones that are having issues with the sound, if you want to maybe exit and re-enter the browser.
Yeah, I'm getting some updates as well. So I think we'll probably roll on. I know this is probably going to be streamed a lot. Once people get a hold of this on archives, it's going to be that kind of a viral sensation. So maybe they'll be able to keep up with it as in their downtime moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
Right.
You go ahead.
All right, so let's jump back in. So the EPSB granted relief around the 70 days of student teaching. Again, obviously, COVID-19 has created some serious challenges for our EPPs. In addition, another issue that came up for our EPPs is as the universities were closing, they were sending students home. And so then that took some students well out of the range of the districts they were in, even if the district could allow them to participate some way, shape, or form in NTI. There were some who just physically couldn't be there. So we appreciate all the districts' flexibility with that, our EPPs, and especially the Education Professional Standards Board for granting that relief. Another component of that, all our student teachers were required to be observed 4 times by their university supervisors. And as quickly as universities started changing their approach and sending students home, and as districts started to close and move to NTI, that created an issue as well. And so the EPSB granted waivers around that. Now, there were some who were able to complete all their observations remotely through NTI and some other means, and that's great, but there were also some issues where there was just not the access to technology or some of the other geographical challenges that we ran into as well. So that's the big news around educator prep as far as what the EPSB did yesterday in granting waivers. And so let's look at certification, because this is probably going to impact you more. And if we can go to the next slide, please.
Uh-oh. All right. I'm seeing a white screen. Oh, wait, there we go.
There it is. Okay, so in addition to providing relief around educator prep for our student teachers, the EPSB granted the creation of a 1-year certificate to meet the needs of several circumstances. Again, we wanted to make sure that we're keeping the supply of educators in the pipeline for our districts. We know that business is going to go on, that school is going to happen, and there's no way to just say, sorry, we're going to send everybody back to complete their experiences, or oops, ETS closed down, so we can't take practice tests, so we can't certify people. That's not practical. That's not helpful. That's not supportive of our districts. So the EPSB took pretty broad action around providing some 1-year conditional certificates. And so instead of me trying to navigate this with you, I'm going to bring our branch manager of certification, Crystal Horde, in here. Most of you know Crystal and know that she knows this stuff backwards and forwards. So she's going to walk you through the waivers and what this means to you at the district level.
Thank you, Rob. So these next 3 or 4 bullets. They pretty much capture the majority of the issues that we've kind of discussed as a leadership team already. The first bullet point, program completers. These are individuals who are graduating or scheduled to graduate in May from undergraduate programs or graduate programs. That could also be people who are finishing option 6 programs. Anyone who was scheduled to finish their program and get their 5-year certificate in May and have not been able to pass their Praxis 2 specialty area test or their PLT 1 or both. These individuals are going to be eligible to receive a 1-year certificate so that they can, if they have a job offer, obviously they can start teaching, on it, or if they don't have a job offer, they'll have a certificate in hand so they can be hired. They will be required to complete their Praxis test, whatever test those are, within the 1-year period of their certification, or that 1-year certificate is not subject to renewal. They will have a printed renewal requirement on their certificate when they download a copy that states they must meet their assessment requirements by September 1st of the expiration year. So again, that is the program completers. The second bullet point is regarding the CAHQ route, and a lot of districts are familiar with this application to help fill some gaps when you have teachers that are currently certified that are interested in adding another area to their certification in specifically in the areas of math, science, English, social studies, foreign language, and health or PE if they hold one of those 2 certifications. So if you've got a teacher that you are looking at or considering adding or having them add a certification through this route, this would apply. I'll give an example of one that I had an email this morning. This person is already a certified elementary teacher. She has an undergraduate degree in French, and she had been hired to teach French for next year. Well, she already has a major in the subject area. She only needs to pass the French Praxis test. But now with the testing center closure, she's unable to do so. So in this circumstance, we would be able to grant her a 1-year certificate once the district submits the CAHQ application and we verify that they've met all other requirements. And then once again, they'll be able to receive the 1-year certificate and pass the assessment within that 1-year period. The third bullet is for the option 6 or proficiency evaluation program candidates. So I know when I was taking a look at Soapbox, I think I already saw some questions popping up around this one. So if you've got candidates that are either trying to get admitted into an option 6 or a proficiency program, or they're currently admitted in a proficiency or option 6 program, probably more the ones that are trying to get admitted. Once they've been conditionally admitted by their university, they will qualify for a 1-year provisional certificate, either the temporary provisional or the proficiency provisional, with the offer of district employment. So you all as superintendents and HR personnel will do the same process that you normally do. You'll look for that letter from their university that states they've been admitted to a program, although now it may say that they've been conditionally admitted. Once you have that letter and verification from their EPP that they've been admitted to a program, your district HR representative will upload the CATP application, and then we will proceed with that as normal. The only difference on those is their first year temporary provisional or proficiency provisional certificate will also have the renewal requirement that they must meet their admission test within their first year of certification. The last bullet point here I will address is issuance of principal statement of eligibilities. We've had a couple of these questions already come up with individuals who were scheduled to finish their principal program in May, and they had not been able to take one or both of those principal assessments. we will be able to issue, as long as we get the recommendation from the college that they've met all of their requirements, we would issue a 1-year statement of eligibility. So those individuals would be able to actively apply for vacant positions across the state. Once the district makes a hiring decision, you all will continue to do the confirmation of employment and upload that to our system. We will then issue a 1-year professional certificate with the renewal requirement that they must meet their principal assessment requirements within the 1-year period. For the first bullet point, the third bullet point, and that fourth bullet point, and I know I've mentioned this already, but it goes without saying again that all of these require that the individuals have met all certification requirements for their program, with the exception of passing their assessment. So as long as they've done so, they're going to qualify for at least a 1-year certificate.
Thank you, Crystal. In addition, ETS, Educational Testing Services, is planning on rolling out a program to allow praxis testing to occur at home, believe it or not. They are partnering with a software company called ProctorU to be able to provide testing security, and supposedly they can do that all the way up to extremely high stakes testing. So stay tuned for that. That will not change the waiver at all. What it will do, though, is it will provide the additional cushion and time for districts to be able to make hires, or for EPPs to be able to admit candidates, for people to be able to change, like what Chris was talking about for the principal certificate. So it's pretty broad on the relief that was provided by the EPSB as we've tried to work through these problems. If you've got some other specific issues out there, please be sure to share them with us, and we'll be happy to try to game plan that with you. So moving on to certified evaluations, as you know, this is right in the thick of the season for that, and I'm sure it's been a major challenge as you are working to evaluate your certified employees. We have Senate Bill 177 that was signed into law, and just remember that this is for all certified employees, not just for teachers. But what it does do is it provides consideration, broad consideration, to the local boards to revise current CEP so that districts can meet the requirements of the CEP. And so, again, can we go to the next slide, please? There we go. So what this means is a couple things. One, districts are given the sole authority and the flexibility to make the changes to their CEPs. And so because of that, all you have to do is get your board to sign off on it. And this is in regard to all internal timelines and processes that you have in the evaluation process. Again, only the local board can approve those changes, and KDE cannot approve those changes. We are happy to provide technical assistance and support, but we can't make the changes or approve the changes. Just know that the one constant in this whole deal is May 15th is the deadline for notice to be given regarding salary changes or non-renewal of contracts. The big difference is that you can do this via regular mail or the official email address that you have for the employee on record. So that's the big consideration there, is that you don't have to try to meet in person and get a physical signature from somebody on a notice that you can send it via US mail or email to be able to provide those notifications. But May 15th is still the drop dead line for that, so please keep that in mind moving forward with CEPs. Director Todd Davis and members of our P3 team, or Principal Partnership Project, have conducted virtual office hours. They did a couple sessions last week, and they had about 90 participants. And as a result, they're gonna host some more hours on Thursday from 2 to 3 Eastern time. I think it was a great opportunity for people from districts to be able to really hash out specific issues with CEPs and listen to what other districts are doing and learn from each other. So That opportunity to collaborate and learn and gain technical assistance and support will again be happening this Thursday at 2 o'clock, and we'll make sure that you have the link to that to join that meeting. All right, next, from the area of teacher recruitment and development, we've got some interesting work going on behind the scenes and changing each day. Obviously, the COVID-19 crisis has drastically curtailed our in-person services, so our team has been working to figure out how to support in this environment. And so at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Meredith Brewer to talk about all the great work that's going on in her division.
Thanks, Rob. Yes, in support of sort of these unprecedented times, our Go Teach KY team has developed a few different services that I wanted to share about under the heading of our Teachers Helping Teachers outreach. So we do have a mentor program. So if you have any teachers who are interested in either acting in the role of mentor or perhaps are interested in being mentored, they are able to complete a Google form and we will match them up. Tony, if you could go to the next slide. We have 4 different areas that we're focusing on at this point: content support, support utilizing different resources, technology, and how to connect with students and parents virtually. And so if you have any interested teachers, they can go to the Go Teach KY website under the Teachers Helping Teachers tab, and they can complete the Google forms either to sign up to be a mentor or to be matched with a mentor. We also have our social media campaigns. Using the hashtag #GoTeachKY@home, we've been sharing some different resources and asking for our community members to share as well. So if you search under that hashtag, you'll find some of our specific resources that may be helpful during NTI. We also have just yesterday held our first Twitter chat. That was last night at 6 p.m. Eastern time. We had our first KY Teachers Helping Teachers Twitter chat. And if you go to our Go Teach KY Twitter page, we actually have the highlights from that chat available if you were not able to participate. And we're planning to have our next Twitter chat on April 27th, and those will all be around NTI resources, what teachers are doing to best support students, engaging families, topics like that. We hope to have some representatives from our national board community on for the 27th chat. So do visit our Go Teach website, goteachky.com/teachers helping teachers. That's where we'll keep everything updated with the different resources that we have available.
Thank you, Meredith. All right, moving on. As you know, we had planned on releasing the results of the new the Impact Kentucky survey in late March, but because of the COVID-19 health crisis, we decided to postpone the release of the results so that districts could really focus on the immediate priorities of educating their students and feeding their kids. But now that we're a few weeks into the NTI routine, we're ready to think about planning how to share the results with districts. And so what we're going to do is we'll be meeting with our state level advisories, with superintendents, with principals and teachers in the coming days, and look at what their recommendations and feedback suggest would be a good time to roll this out. We definitely want to get this in the hands of our districts before the end of the year so they can review the feedback that they've gotten through the survey and to begin to plan some professional development. There may be obviously the potential for some extended professional development time, and this might be of great use to the districts for that. So please stay tuned for that. We really do want this to be a meaningful data set for you to be able to help inform your decision making and look at some of the initiatives and changes that you want to make for next year. All right, moving on. So moving into some things to consider that probably need to be front burner issues during, or just to keep in mind during this time of NTI. So just wanted to run through a few considerations that we've been kind of dealing with and thinking about up here in OELE. So we took a couple lines from our professional code of ethics. Remember, and this is for all educators, but I think teachers are being placed in some really new situations with all of the electronic communication that they're having, working from home, and some of the lines potentially being not as clear as they are in the traditional classroom. So educators shall maintain a professional approach with students and shall exemplify behaviors which maintain the dignity and the integrity of the profession. So we've got what we think are some practical tips for school districts to be thinking about when they're communicating with their educators. When using the digital instruction platforms, it's really important to establish and to maintain appropriate student-teacher boundaries, just like they would if they were in a physical classroom. Just because you're online, in my opinion, can make it a little easier to access and maybe let your guard down. And it's important to remember to remind the teachers to act as if they are in person in their physical classrooms. Would really encourage, and I'm sure you all have been doing this, and for some places I know technology is an issue, so this may not be as big of a deal, but really encourage your teachers to use their school-based communication platforms as opposed to personal communications. It's so important that all of their communications be 100% transparent. Make sure that district administrators have access to all the classrooms and sites online so that teachers have coverage in the case that you have a student or a parent who makes an allegation. So if you're using social media platforms, please consider making sure that your teachers know where the lines in the sand are of the guidance for using Facebook or Twitter for classrooms. I know that folks who've been using these for a long time oftentimes set up classroom-specific Facebook and Twitter pages, very separate from their personal sites. I would really encourage you to continue to emphasize that with your teachers. Having your teachers set up any of the social media pages and platforms through your district technology would be a great thing to do. Parents should be advised of the purpose of any social media pages, and permission should be obtained for students to become friends for those sites. And while the high school students, or according to our social media platforms, once they're over the age of 13, can join these, we potentially have issues where you have elementary students who are needing to access these platforms as well. So please just keep all of those things in mind. One thing that's really important is that teachers are cognizant to protect student information. While there have been some very well-meaning teachers and some very well-meaning posts out on social media, I've seen cases where teachers are tweeting screenshots of students on Google Hangouts showing that they're meeting face-to-face with their students. But if you zoom in on the picture, however, you can see the student's full name, you know the teacher's name, you know the school that they're working in, and that could potentially create a situation that is not safe for our students. And I know that's the last thing that you would want or that your teachers want for your kids. So please just ask them to be very careful and cognizant of what they're posting on social media in terms of their students' profiles, their names, their pictures, all of those kinds of personally identifiable informations. It's also important because students have such access to teachers right now, potentially around the clock, that teachers are not school counselors or therapists. It's a very emotional time for everyone. Teachers are, I know, completely fried right now with trying to manage all of the tasks at home and providing online support and extended learning support as well. And so, you know how it is when you become tired and fatigued, sometimes your defenses are down and you may not make your best decisions. So please remind them that anytime that they think there is a situation in which someone should be warned or someone should be protected, that they have a duty to report that. Those same safeguards and same requirements are still in place even with NTI and remote learning. Finally, teachers need to ensure that they're taking care of themselves physically, mentally, and emotionally during these times. That'll make it easier to stay away from some of the slippery slopes that are out there, and making sure that they are on their A game as they continue to try to deliver content, instruction, and maintain those effective teacher-student relationships. The EPSB's ethics team is working to pull together resources that will be shared with districts in the coming days to help also provide some guidance and support in these areas. And so with that, that is our presentation. It looks like we do have some questions, and I'll kick back to Tony and the commissioner to guide us through those.
Okay. So you have here the list of everybody on the presentation and how you can reach them. These are their email addresses, and I will go first with the Google form that was sent out in your email addresses. And I just want everybody to know that this PowerPoint has been added to your invite in your calendars. We're trying not to send a lot of emails to your inboxes. And so we're trying to just use what we've already sent. So this PowerPoint can be found in your schedule where you got the link for this meeting. So the first question from the Google form, I think has already been addressed, but let's just go ahead and touch on it in terms of how to handle certifications for teachers who may not have been able to take the practice and have already spent a year as emergency certified.
Okay, so Crystal, let's let you take that, please.
Okay, so if they've completed their program and have not passed their assessment, the key to that being that they've already finished all of the coursework in their program and have graduated if that program was tied to a degree, then they would be eligible for the 1-year certificate. But we do have to have the recommendation from their college that they are program completers. And then they would get that 1-year certification that would be renewable on the contingency that they complete their testing requirements by September 1st of the expiration year.
Okay. All right. So our next question is going to be also, well, we'll just go ahead and we'll rotate here. Why not? Let's see if a teacher is currently working under an emergency certificate, is there a mechanism for them to receive another emergency certificate?
That sounds like it's going to be me again. Currently, the emergency certifications are limited in regulation under 16 KAR 2120 to a second issuance under 2 circumstances. And those 2 circumstances are if the first emergency certificate was issued after February 15th of the school year, or if the first emergency certificate was issued for less than 50% of their teaching schedule. I like to use the example, if you've got a biology teacher who teaches one section of chemistry, that likely would be less than 50% of their teaching schedule. So under those 2 circumstances, a teacher can receive a second emergency certificate. Outside of those 2 circumstances, in order for the teacher to receive a second emergency certificate, the school district would have to request a board waiver of 16 KAR 2120 in order for the teacher to receive a second 1-year emergency.
Okay. And I do see that there are a couple questions about funding on here, and I did text Robin Kinney, and she will be able to answer some of those questions here towards, we'll filter those in here towards the end, or when we get to the end of the questions related to this issue. So we currently have a teacher teaching that would like to move to an open special education position. She has completed her master's in LBD, but hasn't taken the practice yet. Do any of the waivers apply to her situation?
Me again. Once again, if this person has completed their program, their university would have to submit the CA1 application recommending them for the certification, and they would qualify for a 1-year certificate in order to complete the testing requirements.
Okay. Does the waiver for CASE apply to the alternative certification admission as well?
Yes,
Allison?
it does.
Okay, I know some option 6, some graduate programs may specify the GRE or the CASE, but yes, it would apply to that also.
Okay.
I was going to respond, but since you all did, yeah, as long as they have met all the other admission requirements except for being able to meet that admission testing requirement.
Okay. And I believe that we've answered the question about student teachers for the fall, what to do about their practice exams and certifications if this continues. Does anybody want to add to that conversation?
Sure. Just one thing, that if the online praxis at home test becomes available, we would just encourage anyone who's getting a job offer to go on and work on taking those tests, since we just find that the longer people wait, the tougher it is to pass those tests. They would still have a year to pass it and to meet those requirements, but that would just be a recommendation.
Okay. All right. So assistant principal candidates that need to take the state and national exams, are those exams now taken from home versus sites, and where can they access that information?
So again, we're still waiting on the formal announcement from ETS. We did get an email yesterday from them to say that they are planning on rolling out the test at home process. All they've mentioned so far was praxis in that email, so we're just going to have to stay tuned. However, we still have room within the waivers to be able to take care of those candidates as well, if that option is not available. Crystal, I don't know if you wanted to fill in a little more, or Allison, whoever's best for that.
I believe that we had within a discussion we'd had amongst ourselves, ETS had mentioned that they were, I think you may have just touched on this while I was checking the soapbox, that they are going to be rolling out the tests based on the ones that are most often utilized. So we don't know when, I think at this point we just have to wait for ETS to come out with additional guidance on which tests they're going to be offering and when.
Okay. Teachers who graduated in December but haven't passed one part of the practice and can't take it due to the testing closures, will these new waivers apply to those folks as well? Yes.
The same situation as previous questions. The university where they completed their program would have to submit their CA1 application recommending them for the certification. They would receive a 1-year certificate and have to complete their testing requirements by September 1st of the expiration year.
Assistant principal holds a temporary certificate for IL level 2 principal set to expire on June 30th of this year. If this employee does not take or pass the required principal assessment, will they qualify for an SOE for 2021 year?
This one I may have to get Cassie's guidance on as well, since the 1-year temporary certificate for school principals is covered in statute. There's two different, there's a 1-year temporary for in-state principal candidates and a 1-year temporary for out-of-state principal candidates. If this person completed an in-state program, then the answer would be yes. because we would get that recommendation. And if it's an out-of-state person, I would have to defer to Cassie for guidance regarding the statute on that.
Crystal, this is Cassie. So this is sounding like a very fact-specific scenario that I think we would probably be best served if the individual who's asked that question can reach out directly to Crystal after this meeting and provide the specific details. We can look that individual up in the system and then give an accurate answer at that time.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next one is, what about an administrative certificate that expired this school year? How can it be renewed?
Well, that will depend on what the renewal requirements on the certificate are. I would encourage the individual to look at their certificate. If it's a level 1 administrative certification, level 1 requires completion of the level 2 program. Again, I think this is another one, like Cassie was saying, that this may be very fact specific. And so you all can, the district can reach out to me directly with the individual's information. But typically, if the certificate's already been issued and we're just renewing it, it would just depend on whatever that renewal requirement was for that certification.
Okay. All right, so this is has to do with salary reduction and non-renewal notices. So May 15th is the date for non-renewal notices, but the date for salary reduction notices is 90 days before the first day of the next school year. And this may happen before May 15th. How to handle this situation?
Rob, I'll take this one. So that is correct. It is 90 days prior to the start of the next school year. However, May 15th still remains the last day, the last absolute day that you can notify.
Okay. Will universities automatically recommend those that have completed the principal preparation program, except for the test, or will the student have to initiate the process of getting an SOE?
The university, at least the university deans, were involved in a meeting with CACTE yesterday, and these situations were discussed. So normally the individual who is completing a program has to initiate the CA1 application anyway, and then they have to email that to over to their university for the university to sign off on the application. So the answer to that is yes, the individual needs to initiate the process, but they'll send it to their university certification officer, and then the certification officer will then complete the recommendation portion and upload the application.
Okay, will the Kentucky State administrative test required for principals be waived for the 1-year period 2 for principals who have another state principal certification?
I'm not sure that I follow that one. If they already have been issued a principal certification in the past, unless it was a statement of eligibility that is expired and they're trying to renew their statement of eligibility, aside from that, if they're on the professional certificate already, they don't have to retest. So this may be one where the district would need to email me directly with a follow-up with the information so I can look it up.
Okay. All right, and then we're going to move. Okay, if you have some more questions about certification, please send those in. I've got a couple of funding questions. Robin, Kenny, are you on?
Yes, I am.
All right. So the first question is that they would like to know more about the steps for reimbursement using the CARES grant. They don't feel comfortable spending money that they don't have in hand.
Well, first, let me commend superintendents for thinking about spending money that they don't have in hand. I think it is a good idea to take a kind of conservative approach on this. The CARES Act funding is not yet available yet. We are waiting on the notice of application from the US Ed to allow us to apply for that funding. and they are supposed to issue that application to us within 30 days of the effective date of the act. So we have, while I was actually on the call with you during this time, we have received some additional information about the governor's emergency fund and how to apply for that. So I'm thinking that we're going to get information on this at any time about the actual application effort. There was a question about the reimbursement. When are we going to get the funds? So as soon as we apply for the money, it comes to us, and then we will turn around and disperse to districts out of the elementary and secondary emergency fund. This will not be a reimbursement process. Funds will be dispersed directly to districts to be used for eligible expenditures. And we talked a little bit about last week about what some of those eligible expenditures are, but we're learning more about that every single day. So I would be cautious about going ahead and expending. And I think even at the beginning of this presentation, the commissioner talked about expenditure of funds based upon what date going forward. So we are hopeful and optimistic that that will be even for funds that have already been expended, but we don't exactly have that final direction from USAID at this point.
Okay.
And Robin, I would just add that we're going to have, and I apologize if you said this, we're going to have a webinar another webinar on the CARES Act reimbursement. And that may be one of those webinars where we just give you, about 24 hours notice, because we want to get that information to you quickly as soon as we get the guidance documents from USAID, because we know time is of the essence and you need to be making some decisions about spending this money. And we want to make sure that we spend all the available money we have from the federal government toward that can help districts and kids. So just be looking for that we anticipate a webinar at some point in probably the next 10 days just on the CARES Act.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay. All right. I also have a question. Let's see if there's more on the CARES grant. I think there was more about just the timeline, but I think Robin just kind of wrapped that all up there. So there's a question on the ACT. If I have anybody from Rhonda Sims's office, or maybe someone can help pitch in on this. For students who missed the state ACT test, can the district submit documentation of the student's ACT score from a previous ACT test, since there looks to be no means for makeup?
Yes, Tony, this is on. I'm Rhonda Sims.
Gotcha.
We actually are making arrangements with ACT Incorporated to offer a fall makeup testing for students. That'll be released to our district assessment coordinators. I think tomorrow is our next training for them. It looks like that the date will be like September the 22nd. We will have some options in October. So we want to give that student an opportunity to get tested with the junior ACT. Remind you, there is no accountability reporting this year. Obviously, when that student was a senior, if you wanted to submit a score outside of the state provided test to demonstrate transition readiness, you could do so. But the key is we've had 3 districts who did not test initially with the ACT. So we want to get those 3 districts tested, plus any students who have missed the ACT. So stay tuned to your district assessment coordinators, and they'll have all the details for that. But September and October will be an opportunity.
Okay. Another question, has the time frame changed for reduction in service?
Tony, this is Todd.
Okay.
I think what they're talking about is the notification to staff of any reduction in duties, perhaps.
Yeah,
and that was set forth in Senate Bill 177, what the dates are for that. That's a May 15th date to notify to non-renew staff who are on a limited contract, or to send notification of reduction in duties. And Senate Bill 177 provided flexibility in sending that notice via email using a district email account, or via US mail instead of handing a letter to the person in person, but it didn't change the date. The May 15th deadline still applies.
Okay. All right. Our next question. If I have a teacher that is emergency certified, she's a rank 4 bachelor's degree in early childhood education, but has not passed the math portion of the practice, is she eligible for another year?
So this sounds to be like somebody who is taking the case assessment to get admitted into a program, because the case math test is one of those tests that at the previous EPSB meeting, the board approved to go ahead and start accepting the revised version of that, the case math test. However, about the time that that decision was made by the board, the COVID-19 stuff ensued. So many people have not been able to take the new version of the test. So to answer that question, yes, if this person is trying to get admitted into a program, whether it's a option 6, well, specifically like an option 6 program, and they are required to pass that test, they would be eligible for a 1-year certificate upon recommendation of their university, as long as they meet all other admission requirements to the program.
Okay. Is there guidance on industry standard certifications? How and when could we test? This could be critical for seniors seeking the job market when we beat this virus and get back to work. Is there anybody from CTE on, or Kevin, can you handle that one? Did you hear that one? Oh, did I just, oh, there you are. Can you hear me?
Hey, sorry. We probably need to get that one offline, Tony. I don't
Okay.
think David is on the call today.
Okay. I can get that one over. In fact, if the person who sent that wants to shoot me an email on that, we can get that answered for you on that. And we are going to have a, as you can tell, we're trying to do these webcasts that are kind of specific to content so you can have them all in one area. So, and CTE will be in one of those areas. Go ahead, Kevin.
That's all I have.
Oh, okay.
Just make a note of that one, Tony, since we couldn't answer it. That wait a minute, there's Dave. I think David is on.
Yes, I'm on. I've had I was having trouble coming in and out with the reception. Could you repeat the question again?
Okay, yes, sure. Is there guidance on industry standard certifications, how and when we could test? This could be critical for seniors seeking the job market when we beat this virus and get back to work.
Yes, we've got some guidance that should be on the COVID page. But basically what it is, we recognize that there's no accountability, but we're going to work hard to try to make industry certifications available where we can. But this is kind of a moving target, as some of those would require entrance into labs. We do have some articulation agreements that are based on some assessments where students receive 3 hours of credit at a university or college, and we're going to work to have, we have obtained permission to get open windows all the way up through fall for those if they so desire to take them. But as far as the lab one, we're going to have difficulty there, and there is guidance on the KCTCS webpage, and we have a link to that, I think, also online. If not, I'll put it back in this document.
Okay.
Once we finish.
All right, David mentioned, I'll go ahead while we're talking about the COVID-19 page. I'm going to go ahead and share that with you because we did roll that out last week. And I want to show you what it looks like just so you can see it. Can you let me know when you see it up on the screen? It should be loading here in a second, hopefully. Do you see it up there yet?
Yes, it's up.
Okay, so what we've done is we have created, and this you can get to it from the main website. is we have, and this is basically for our districts, it's obviously for families and for our schools to go. We've broken all of our areas into 3 main areas, which the commissioner has mentioned. Our focus is going to be on educating, feeding, and supporting. And within these areas, you can go and click on each of the buttons, and it'll take you to the different resources within Educate, which teaching, learning, everything that you can find. Each department, each office is updating their pages as it relates to COVID-19. You can also use these buttons on the side to go back to support. So, or to feed in particular. So we tried to make it very user-friendly, to be in a format that you can find easily. And also, of course, all the news and things that we put out, all the previous webcasts, links, everything can be found here. We've been putting videos from the governor here that are family friendly that you can share with your districts. All of the letters from the commissioner are there. And again, you can find it just by clicking up here with the COVID-19 webpage. And we just launched this new page last week. So with that, I will stop sharing the page and we will get back to some questions. All right, we have, will any universities be offering the Option 7 program?
I'll take that one. At this point, we have not received any proposals from any of the providers regarding Option 7.
Okay. All right. What about the time frame for the reduction of duties, non-renewal, paraprofessionals, coaches, extended days?
Tony, this is Todd again. I think that's the same, along the same lines of the question that we addressed a few minutes ago.
May 15th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right. I think that wraps us up with questions. So we may be getting out of here pretty early today. Kevin, if you want to.
Did we answer the question about the AP?
That's what I was going to say too.
So Amanda and I have been talking offline. There's a question that came in about if a student does not have internet access or not unreliable internet access, whether or not they can be admitted to a school for just the purpose of taking the AP tests, as long as social distancing is practiced and they only have one person there with them. And so Amanda and I have been talking about it. First of all, we would recommend that you troubleshoot with the Office of Education Technology first, just to make sure there are no other options available. That may also involve us asking AP as well for some guidance, because I'm sure they're getting that around the country. And then I don't think we should rule out the possibility of a student coming in if that's the only way they're able to take the AP test, but let's explore the other options first. And then we can advise you on specific cases about bringing a child in, and how that would have to work. And you need to have a disinfectant protocol before and after to protect both the student and staff. And you need to involve your school nurse and notify your local health department, just to be careful and cautious. And then obviously it gets more complicated if you are in a school where you've had a member of your staff test positive. And so instead of just saying yes, let's explore all the other alternatives first. And we're happy to help facilitate that through OET, as well as with our assessment accountability through AP. And then we can talk about, if worst case scenario, how you could get one person in the building to make that happen. Is that okay, Amanda? You and I were kind of back and forth on it, and I've since had some other conversations that you weren't aware of. So.
Absolutely. No, I think you're right on. And I appreciate that question. I know AP or College Board just announced their test dates last week, so I know it's on the forefront. And I just appreciate the fact that the districts are really thinking ahead on connectivity and equipment and what students have access to. I mean, as you all know, we cover the cost of the test for students who qualify for free reduced price lunches. So we definitely want to make sure that they also have access to the test. So kudos to you all for asking. And I really appreciate that. And yes, Kevin, thank you for adding on to that. Anything we can help you do to brainstorm ideas. I know College Board has a link on their hub right now where it says if a student doesn't have equipment or connectivity, you can reach out to them. So I would even see what their guidance says as well. But definitely, if we can help you brainstorm or think of ways to ensure that students have access, please reach out to us. We definitely want to be of assistance, and we absolutely want those students to have the opportunity to take the AP test. So thank you. And Kevin, thank you for the additional information.
Okay. So we have a, sorry about that. That one came in through Google form and I almost forgot about it. And we do have the question from the superintendent that asked that one, and we can provide specific information to you via email as well. So next question is, in light of COVID-19, will all the requirements for a graduation seal still be required?
Say that one more time, Tony. I'm sorry.
It says
a graduation seal. Say that one more time.
Seal, in light of the COVID-19, will all the requirements for a graduation seal still be required?
I assume that's SEAL as in seal.
Yes.
So Amanda, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the only thing that might change based on COVID-19 with someone's graduation, actually their actual diploma, is that you may not have a ceremony. And so anything you do under our normal protocol with signing diplomas, the seal of the district, et cetera, on those diplomas will be the same, and certification by the local board, et cetera. Is that correct, Amanda?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking too. And if there's something specific to that, please reach out to us to make sure we've answered your question. But that's how I interpret it as well. And you're right. And I know some districts are getting to that point of talking about distribution of the diploma and things, and we are going to provide feedback and guidance to you guys from that. We're collecting that now, but yes, that's how I would interpret it. So if we are wrong, please let us know so we can address your question. Absolutely.
Okay.
So we anticipate many of our graduations will be a lot like, and some high schools may be this way now, but particularly in college, we all know you walk across and you get your cover, right? Because sometimes the grades haven't been calculated or whatever, and then you get your diploma mailed to you, and then you insert it in the cover that you got on the ceremony. And so, there'll be similar situations we anticipate in this spring and early summer.
Okay.
And at a later time, we have some. We had a great discussion today with the superintendent or the commissioner's student advisory council about these issues, about graduation and the different events and some of the ideas that they have, and what value do they place on some of the ideas about how graduation ceremonies can occur. And of course, the department's not in, we're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to give you ideas, share information, support you in what you do decide to do, and help you think outside the box. So you're going to be hearing additional information from us as we keep fielding those ideas from the various K groups and the advisory groups.
Okay. Absolutely. And just to add on to that too, I think one of the takeaways today, regardless of your decisions, and I know they are very difficult to make, especially in a lot of unknown, uncharted waters, and we're not sure what future looks like. But if you have not already engaged your student advisories, I know many of you all have student councils or you have advisories, please engage them early. They do care. They are very interested in what's going to happen. They're very unsure. They're very optimistic that they're going to have some of their traditions maintained. But the resounding message I got today from our student advisory is just for them to be engaged and involved in those decisions. And I know many of you have different structures for student voice and how you have it organized, large or small, but I think just a portion of that is just super important. And they are very, very interested. The other thing I wanted to point out too is with the seal question, many of your districts may offer like a seal of biliteracy or a work ethic seal and things like that. That is completely local decision on what you want to do with that. And if they were short meeting some of the requirements because of COVID-19 and them not being able to be in school, again, some decisions you'll have to make on how you want to address that. But yeah, I'm with you, Kevin, and we are working on that feedback, and we'll have some things for you guys to think about or consider or whatever may be helpful to you as you make some tough decisions.
One of the things, Amanda, that struck me today with the student advisory feedback, of course, they all look forward to graduation, and we anticipate that they would say that graduation will be important, but they were actually mentioning some of the things that are part of their senior weeks or the last month of school that they were really going to miss, and then they would be things that you would not think would be important to a senior in high school. One of them was there's a tradition in that school to go back to walk the halls of your middle and elementary school, and there was another that's going to be missed, and then there was another one about a senior breakfast and different things like that. So I think we all need, and while we can't have a lot of those same types of events, I encourage superintendents and principals to think out of the box about how we might be able to honor some of those same things, even if it's maybe a Microsoft team meeting with the elementary and middle school that feeds the high school, or some things like that we could be creative about, because it was surprising to me about some of the little things that the kids were looking forward to.
Absolutely. It's same here. I thought the graduations were big, and we do have a pretty heavy senior advisory council, which, by the way, I want to let all of our superintendents and those listening that we will have 12 spots opening up on the Commissioners Advisory Council, and we'll be sending out some for how you can nominate someone to serve on that. They can send their information in, because we'll be selecting new students for that as these current 12 seniors graduate. But those were very, very kind of heartfelt things that they shared with us, and absolutely to think differently and outside the box on how, specifically as a parent of a senior, I thought that was very, very touching. So
I know many of you superintendents have similar advisory councils, and I know probably in all the chaos you haven't thought about it, but I would strongly recommend if you're able to convene your advisories on virtually. I think it probably assisted us more than it obviously assisted the students today, but you would probably have the same experience. But as you all know, because you're talking to students every day, they often have some of the best perspectives that we could have.
Okay. Absolutely. And I think just to round out that comment too from Tony and Kevin, clearly we had good conversations with them today, and it hit home that really just their traditional things that you wouldn't think that they need closure for. Like they are sad because right now they're not sure they're going to get to walk back through their halls one more time. And that sounds so small. Or walking the newer tradition of visiting your elementary school and them getting to walk through, and be proud that they're graduates. Those are things I know as we as adults have worked really hard, if you've been at a district level, to make that happen. Really thinking, is this really important to them, or they're kind of blowing it off? It absolutely is. For boys and girls, both spoke highly of it today, probably more of our gentlemen than our ladies, which was really nice to hear them speak openly about that. But you hear about things where the teachers have done parades, which I think are phenomenal. But is there some way that the seniors could stay safe, but maybe do their own parade or drive by their elementary school, or just something? I know one district is having ask their senior families to decorate their door with a jersey or a t-shirt from the school or something, just to be proud of their senior. And it's just something to recognize them as seniors and to value them and honor. I know a lot of the spring sports are being honored this week with the lights at the stadium being on that you can drive by. And so it's just something to think about. We know you have so many decisions going on, and absolutely respect that. But it was very eye-opening today about the human side that the seniors, that the students are missing. They are appreciative of the NTI work. They are appreciative of their teachers. One of them said they're trying really hard if they're not good at technology, but they do appreciate it. And they didn't have a negative thing to say about it. And they're a very blunt group. and that's what I love about them. But they're very supportive, and they're hopeful. So just something to think about as you guys are winding down and figuring out whether we come back or we don't. What is it going to look like? But just simple things that don't have to be big and expensive, but just an opportunity to honor the kids, because they are one last time. And so it was really eye-opening for us today. But I won't go on. But if there's questions we did not answer specific to your graduation questions or anything like that that we haven't done, please reach out. We'll be happy to help.
I was going to say, Amanda, I think they're almost as blunt as the superintendent advisory and LSAC, so which is not a bad thing. We appreciate
no, it's not bad at all.
That's exactly what the advisories are for.
Right,
and then and I did get a clarification from a superintendent that the seal question on the diploma was in fact, talking about the work skills seals.
Oh, okay.
So we need to dive deeper on that and involve David Horseman, and we'll get more information on that. That's going to obviously be relevant to everyone.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. There's a couple of questions that have been added here. Should districts already decide to close early? They said they've seen some districts advertising that they are ending May 13th or 14th, especially with AP going until May 22nd. Seems like it would be hard to make sure students take those if they're out of school.
And again, that's going to be, Rhonda may want to chime in if we've gotten some guidance from a college board about whether or not how that works with AP, the testing, and logistically how that would work if the schools were going to be ending before the AP test was being given. That's another area that we need to provide guidance on. Rhonda, do you have anything on that right now? And then I can address the general issue of closure. Well, Rhonda's, if she, I don't know if she's still on or not. Of course, if you do have 1062 under Senate Bill 177, 1000 or 1062 instructional hours, you can close or you end your year under that statute because of the COVID-19 crisis, when you may not otherwise have ended that early. You also have the option of not, you can amend your calendar, and you can, and we'll know a lot more, I think, when we hear from the governor early next week about what they're thinking and seeing in the data. But, you don't have to race to get to 1062. However, we also understand some of you want to race to get to 1062 because there are some communities that it has impacted more than others, and you're picking up on fatigue of your district. So, it's not really a one size fits all. But we do recognize that there will be district. I think one district we already know will close. Their last day will probably be May 4th, which is a Monday. They will have 1062 in then. So, Rhonda, are you on about the AP question?
I am, Kevin.
And the question was about AP testing dates that are going to be, let's say, in late May, and then we have districts that, I know at least one district will probably close May 4th. Some will be right there along with that district. Do we have any guidance from College Board on that?
We don't, at least my office does not. We don't work directly with AP. I think someone traditionally in David Horseman's or Amanda's office has been doing that. So, obviously it's a national program, so it does much of the rules around their testing are not really state rules, but national rules. So, Amanda, have you all heard anything new about that?
Yes, so I'm actually in contact. Gia is actually listening right now, and she's over College Board and has some links that we will share out on that. Kevin, a lot of those things that we've discussed with AP are on their site. So I will share that out with the superintendents. We did send it out to the counselors and coordinators, but we'll make sure superintendents have that as well, because I know that was even a concern with one of the students today about letting out early and then having AP exams later. So I will definitely get the information from Gia and get that to superintendents right away.
Thank you both for that. So be looking for that guidance on the COVID-19 webpage. All right, Tony, anything else?
I'm looking to see. I think there was another one. It kind of, is there a possibility that the start of the year will be delayed at least until Labor Day for the entire state? or even later with the possible fall wave of COVID-19. And I think that that goes along to what you had just kind of mentioned. They're looking at, like possibility as late as Labor Day.
Right, and we know the governor and with Dr. Stack and his team, they're monitoring the data in Kentucky, and they're using the data to then inform the public policy decisions on social distancing and school closures and business closures. And so I think they will continue to do that over the summer because the data will change week to week and day to day, and we want to see the curve, of course, flatten and make sure there's not a resurgence. And so I think that means, and it's going to be difficult to do long-term planning because we're kind of planning for 2 weeks at a time, and for the reasons I just described. So I know we're hearing some national discussions about, whether or not schools can go in or not. And Dr. Fauci, I think, has said he thinks so, but always, there's a possibility. So, but right now, I think we're focusing on the end of this year, and of course, you need to be thinking about whether or not, if your district already offers programming over the summer, what that looks like in a virtual environment, and if you haven't done that type of outreach before, now's the time to start thinking about it, because we all know, for lack of a better term, there is always a summer slide. And there certainly will be this summer, even though we have a really good NTI program in our districts.
Absolutely. And speaking of NTI, I just want to remind you to make sure you share those pictures with us on your NTI programs. We are doing, we're trying to do daily, if not somewhat weekly posts on spotlights. Today we highlighted Owensboro schools on their NTI efforts. So be sure to check that out. We've been looking around doing Facebook and Twitter spotlights just to highlight the work that you're doing. We really, really appreciate the highlights and the sharing of examples of things that you're doing to think outside the box. And so with that, I think that will wrap up for today. Kevin, if you have any parting thoughts.
That's it. The only thing I want to thank Rob Akers, his staff, for a great webinar and all the great questions. And just in case you're wondering, Rob Akers does not have a loft department in New York City. The Microsoft Teams platform now has the ability to put in background. So that, and maybe you thought that was the Versailles skyline behind him, but so we'll leave you. We have to laugh, and we're all, as the governor says, we're going to get through it. We're going to get through it together. We're Team Kentucky. We're the education team. And I want to thank you all for what all you're doing every day. We will see you online, and don't forget to be looking for an invitation in a day or so about the what we believe will be a call with the governor for next week.
And the next webcast will likely be next Tuesday, tentatively Tuesday, same time, same place. Thank you.